I grew up on the East Coast, and I had no experience um, with forest fires at all. Okay, not even by proximity. And, no like smoky skies or ash like out here. Yeah. No, no, I haven't. I've experienced the after effects like one does out here, but
Let's see. Graduated, must have been 2021, fall of 2021, something like that. I like the nature a lot. I think that it's a beautiful place to live. It was actually one of the, I would say, driving forces for me moving up here. Yeah. Well, in the springtime, everyone's really happy. It's very bright outside. In the wintertime, it is depressed and dark, and no one wants to go anywhere or do anything. So there's kind of this overlook by the Viking Union. You can see all the way out to the harbor. It's beautiful. You see a big swath of Bellingham kind of out in that Ferndale direction. And I remember the first time I saw it, actually, it must have been senior year of high school, and I was here for like a tour or something. And I wasn't doing it with a tour group, so we just walked over to there, and you just see this, incredible vista, just a flat drop, and you feel like you're, near the edge of the world or something. It's very breathtaking. It's beautiful.
The campus of Western Washinton University is calm at night. Students walking back to their dorms, perhaps after a long day of studying or visiting friends. We stand in the square next to the Student Union building. The overlook reveals a city beneath. From here, it looks just as calm as campus, but for many it is dark and cold. Strange things begin to reveal themselves on the horizon. At once, you begin to question your eyes. What could this plume of smoke be? Visible from Western Washinton University is the city of Cherry Point. It is a city on fire. It burns every day and every night, and it has been doing so for over 52 years. In 1812, Napoleon invaded Moscow and set fire to the city. It burned for 3 days before the fires were extinguished entirely. Over 2/3 of the city had been destroyed. But the city of Cherry Point continues to burn. During the day, campus appears just as calm. A few months out of the year, sun shines upon the natural beauty present here and in much of the surrounding city of Bellingham. From many sides you can see horizon. The view that first brought Cherry Point to my attention is not far from here. I heard stories. I wanted to find out more. This campus contains hidden secrets, connections to past and present. At the far end of campus is the Student Recreation Center. It is a massive gym complex complete with a pool and basketball courts. Many students come in and out every day. Not many, I believe, notice the name on the sign. Who is Wade King? A plaque inside shows us that he died a couple decades earlier, at only 10 years old, on June 11th, 1999. A statue shows him in a baseball uniform, watching over the entrance. His face appears content, but who is the boy behind those eyes? Why is he here? And how did he die?
One of my really close friends in middle school had suffered really severe burns on most of the left side of his body, and I just remember as a kid thinking about how terrifying that was, really. Just seeing that texture. I mean, it was really just...
It was near the end of the day on a Thursday. I just checked that. It came over the scanner. There was an odor investigation, which you hear that a lot. If someone spills gasoline, for instance, at a gas station or something, then there'll be an odor investigation. It could be something as simple as that. So no one really paid much attention at that point. But then it got upgraded to a hazardous spill, and that got people's ears kind of perked. And then after that, you heard a firefighter yelling, "It's running." And at that point, you knew something was big, because you don't hear firefighters over the scanner yelling.
A call came in for an odor investigation. So we responded to the corner there at Iowa and Woburn Street. Captain Jaquish got out to investigate, and I was still in the aid rig that I was driving, and I could see from where I was sitting that his eyes got huge as he looked over the bridge. And right then I knew that this was a little bigger than what we thought it was going to be. Just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, it was literally just free-flowing gasoline, and the vapors went as high as you could see. It just blurred the whole landscape behind the creek.
Nine-one-one. There's a big smoke. The sky is smoke. Okay. Smoke. 911. Yes, I'd like to report an explosion. Okay. Top of Alabama Hill. Okay. 911.
Yeah, I'm on Iowa Street and I just saw like a very big explosion.
Do you know what exploded?
There was a wall of flame over 100 foot tall that started traveling down the creek. You couldn't see nothing through it, and it stayed that way probably for a good minute or so, maybe 2 minutes of just solid flame.
I haven't seen anything like this in my 30 years in the firefighting. One of the police officers I talked to said it looked like something out of his napalm days in Vietnam.
Followed this whole stream bed down and just wiped everything out.
Once employees had been evacuated from nearby businesses, including car dealerships on Iowa Street and Premier Graphics on Kentucky, and while firefighters continued to work on spot fires, officials began to consider the fallout of that carnage. Some callers to KBOS were concerned about the city's drinking water quality, and eyewitness Art Reynolds said all the hatchery's new stream releases would have died. In the days to come, as the community begins to clean up the mess, perhaps the answers to those concerns will follow. Reporting for NewsView, I'm Amy Cloud.
Many of those questions would be answered. The pipeline had burst right next to the city's water treatment plant. All water use was restricted in the surrounding neighborhoods. The creek, which had for millennia been the home of salmon, was rendered completely inhabitable. This hatchery was active at the time and was unable to shut off its water supply from the creek. The gasoline flowed in and killed all the salmon.
Along the shores of Whatcom Creek here at the Woburn Street Bridge, the trees are scorched and the smell of gasoline is still in the air after Thursday afternoon's devastating blast at Whatcom Falls Park. For the short term, workers are trying to assess the damage here along the creek, but it'll be a long recovery for the city of Bellingham.
I was the executive director of Resources, which is a kind of a regional environmental group here in Bellingham. And we ran the Restore, which was right on Whatcom Creek down by the bay. And I was checking on the restore on my way home that afternoon, and all of a sudden people came running in saying, downtown Bellingham just exploded. And we walked out the door and looked up over the museum, and it looked like an atomic bomb had went off. That the cloud was 30,000 feet in the air, and no one had a clue what could have caused such an explosion.
We looked north, and you could see the smoke, huge cloud of smoke. A firefighter described it as Mount St. Helens explosion. You could see it coming down the creek, which was pretty terrifying because you understood that it was running down the creek, that a huge fire was running down the creek. So we were standing on the sidewalk on State Street watching this happen. And at that point, that's when everybody went into action, all the reporters. I had the first byline on the first edition of the Herald.
On June 10th, 1999, a pipeline failed and leaked over 237,000 gallons of refined gasoline into Whatcom Creek. Inside Whatcom Falls Park, the fumes ignited and sent up a massive plume of smoke. From across the bay, a mushroom cloud rises over the city. This is the location where the pipeline burst, and the pipe itself, now detached, seems to have grown a smile. Today, the place is guarded by a wire fence. Now grass has grown over, and only an orange cone marks its spot.
We will investigate every aspect of this tragic accident, and we will get to the bottom of everything that needs to be gotten to the bottom of, and we will cry and we will mourn. We can look forward to making the best of a very difficult situation.
This is Carl Weimer, head of the Pipeline Safety Trust and one of the premier activists and experts on the 1999 explosion. What caused the disaster?
Sure, there's a whole maze of pipelines over in here, water pipelines and these, the Olympic pipeline on top of each other, and the city of Bellingham was doing work on their water treatment plant. So they were excavating to put in some new pipelines. There was a whole protocol in place about who was supposed to be here watching everybody. Those people didn't necessarily show up from Olympic Pipeline, and IMCO Construction actually hit the Olympic Pipeline with a backhoe. You could see the finger marks scraping across the pipeline. They didn't tell anybody. There was some evidence that they may have tried to cover it up by putting some, tar-like material over where they'd scraped it and buried it again. Olympic had been running smart pigs, which is a computer you run through a pipeline that can look for flaws, and they had identified a number of flaws in the pipeline in this exact spot, but they hadn't dug them up to look at them. They had been ordered to by the Department of Ecology, and they just hadn't done it for a variety of reasons. On the day, it was 3:30 in the afternoon when the pipeline failed in this spot. There's a valve downstream about 20 miles from here, and that valve had shut by itself 42 times in the previous 6 months because they had installed it wrong. Every time that valve slams shut, it causes a pressure wave of fuel to come back this direction. On the 44th time, the pressure, when it slammed shut on June 10th, 1999, when the pressure wave hit the place where the backhoe had hit, the pipeline burst there. At 3:30 in the afternoon, it burst. About a half an hour later, they had problems with their control room, the monitors. They were doing some work, and their control room went blank on them. So they couldn't see what was going on in the pipeline. They assumed it was just that valve again, so they called the refineries and told them to turn the pipeline back on after it had automatically shut off. So they pumped almost twice as much fuel into the creek because of that mistake, because they were operating blind because their control room was down. So multiple problems. Pipeline had been dinged, they'd put a valve in wrong, their control room system went wrong, caused this. Any one of those, if it had been caught by the company and fixed, we wouldn't have had a tragedy, or if the regulators had caught it during their inspections, we wouldn't have had this tragedy. Yeah, before the pipeline explosion here, this was just the 16-inch pipeline going across the creek. It just looked like a rusty pipe going across the top of the creek. Kids used to use it for a bridge to get from one side to the other because there wasn't any fence, and no one thought much about it, even though we had all these warning signs and stuff. And there's a great swimming hole down below that kids still use for swimming in the creek. I was here with a bunch of people from a pipeline company, and we were standing here looking at the Olympic pipeline, and there was a bunch of kids, and the vice president of Marathon Pipeline was saying, do you think they know they're swimming underneath this pipeline? And I don't know. What's the chances it could go bad right there in that spot again?
After the interview, we were able to explore the park some more. Its natural beauty was evident, but as we continued, we found many strange objects. Pipes, some old, some new, scattered throughout the park. Some let out directly into the creek. Signs warned us of many more below the ground.
This is the right-of-way for the Trans Mountain Pipeline, which is actually a crude oil pipeline that comes down from Alberta, Canada, and brings crude oil to the 4 refineries in northwest Washington. So this is the right-of-way where that pipeline crosses Whatcom Creek, and unlike the Olympic pipeline, it's buried under the creek, so there isn't a pipeline to see here. But this is part of the creek that was destroyed when the fire happened from the Olympic pipeline. And you can see a lot of the dead large trees that died because of the fire on them. You know, people call those kind of the guardians of the creek now. And the city has tried to leave some of those as a reminder, but they've kind of take them down when they get too dangerous and they might fall on somebody.
This letter by Daryl Strebe first suggested that these guardians be left alone. Although they may fall during windstorms, not every burned tree carcass should be hastily felled. Some of these charred grotesques should be left as memorials to this unnatural disaster.
The word that I've heard people use is toast. It's toast. There's nothing alive. Nothing alive. All the bugs, what they call macroinvertebrates, the bugs that live in the water, they're not alive that I've seen. All of the aquatic life is dead.
The gasoline leaked directly into this small creek. It was the most damaged by the fire. As we observed it 25 years later, a nearby pack of coyotes began to cry.
So the reporters went out and we decided that I would be the lead writer, and so I just stayed and I started making phone calls. I don't remember exactly, but the reporters just started coming in and I just started writing the story at that point. One of the difficult parts of it was late at night, it was probably like midnight or something, my wife called me and she said, do you know who the boys are who died? At that point we knew that, I don't know if we knew 3 people had been affected by it. Liam Wood, the 18-year-old, I don't know if we knew that he had died or if they'd even found his body, but we knew that Stephen Chorvis and Wade King, the 2 10-year-olds, had gone to the hospital. And we didn't even know their names at that point. And my wife called me and she said, do you know who those two boys are? And I said, no, we don't know yet. But she had found out from a friend of a friend, and she told me who the boys were. And my son had played baseball against Wade King. We knew his family a little bit. And so being a reporter, and then all of a sudden, wow, this is somebody that I don't really know. But probably the week before, maybe a couple weeks before, I remember sitting in church, and Wade King and his mother were sitting in front of us, Mary King. And I remember he had his head on her shoulder, and I thought, wow, you know, Wade King has a great relationship with his mother. He really loves his mother. And then now here he is. He's just been killed by this gas explosion. Yeah.
We had 5 children, and he was one that was always positive, always ready to help me cook dinner, and just a fun kid to be around. And it was a big loss to us. That was very hard, seeing him and Wade, both of them. I mean, they were side by side in separate rooms, but they were side by side, and seeing both of those boys like they were was just really devastating. We were all in the room, the whole family, 3 friends of the boys, of the kids, and Stephen was fading, and we all just gathered around the bed, and we all put our hands on his chest, and he expired.
The city held a memorial for the 3 boys. People were invited to leave letters and photographs, music and words.
I don't remember the first time I told Liam that I loved him. I do remember the last. We both knew it was getting pretty late. I turned to him and I said, Liam, I love you, man. And Liam looked at me and he said, man, I love you too. And we both started laughing, and we laughed, and we laughed, and we laughed.
I value many things, life being the first and foremost. I also value good, long-lasting friendships and courtesy. I value beauty and honesty and good food. I value our wilderness areas and all creatures walking the earth. I value all people, and I value diversity and human rights.
Well, thanks for coming, everybody. Thank you for your tears and for your laughter. And thanks, Liam. Thanks for a life that we could share for a while.
The point of origin of the fire appears to be the point where Hannah Creek flows into Whatcom Creek. A fireplace lighter and some of the boys' clothing were recovered at that point. The burn pattern also points to this area as the point of ignition. Statements of the witnesses and victims indicate one of the boys lit a fireplace lighter in the area of Hannah and Whatcom Creek. The fumes that were coming from the creek ignited.
With the thousands and thousands of gallons of fuel that were proceeding down Whatcom Creek, had not the ignition taken place where it did and at the time it did, the damage to this community and the loss of life would have been undoubtedly far greater. It is my perspective that these boys, completely without notice or any awareness, were involved in an action that ended up being heroic for the city of Bellingham.
So the 2 10-year-old boys, their homes where they lived in were right up here. You can see them up here. Their backyards was basically this park. So you can imagine 10-year-old boys off into the woods building forts, fooling around, and they were down here on a beautiful day in June. Liam Wood, who had graduated from high school just a week or so earlier, had come down through this way and was fishing down in the canyon. He was an avid fly fisherman, and he was fishing down there in the canyon when it burst and the 250,000 gallons of gas went his way. You can imagine being in a canyon and all of a sudden the fumes filled the canyon. And he was scrambling to get out of the canyon and couldn't, and fell in the creek. He basically was overcome by the fumes, fell in the creek, and drowned before anything even caught fire. And this was one of those places he loved to come fly fishing. There's a parking lot right up here where the 18-year-old parked his car so he could crawl down here and get down below the Middle Falls and into the canyon. His mother and father were waiting for him. They knew this had happened. They kept trying to call him and couldn't get a response. And the police showed up at their house at almost midnight and told them that, a body had been found. 2 weeks later, the city of Bellingham called and said, "You've got a car. It's been in this parking lot for 2 weeks now. You need to move it." I'm not making the connection that was Liam's car up here. So, his mother and father, who had just lost their son, needed to come and retrieve his car, which they hadn't known where it was until the police had called. So, the worst testimony I ever did with Congress was Frank and Mary King testified we were standing next to each other, and they testified, and they were telling the story how Wade and Stephen came up out of the woods here. They managed to crawl back up to the houses. One of their brothers found them up here and helped them into the driveway. All of their clothes were burned off. There was nothing, they didn't have any skin on their bodies. All they had was melted shoes on their feet. And they got up here in the driveway, and Wade's father came out and saw them, and his mother came out, and Wade was still lucid and could talk, even though he had no hair, no skin, and was yelling for his mother not to look. And they were telling this during the testimony, and Mary's crying, and Frank King is telling this story about Wade being burned totally, worrying about his mother seeing him like that.
Today, Cherry Point is hiding. Since we could not see it from the overlook, we decided to try and get closer. The smoke visible above the trees indicated we were getting closer. The city is listed on maps, but the closer we got, the more confusing the landscape grew. A wetland appeared to be in the middle of construction. Apparently, Cherry Point was attempting to construct nature like one would construct a skyscraper. Already there were pipelines underneath. The project did not seem to be going well. The security car had briefly slowed down. We had clearly been spotted. Strange noises were emanating from just beyond this fence. We got out to investigate. A pipeline here was also visible. The sounds brought to mind a phrase sometimes printed on the unknown areas of old maps. Here there be dragons.
Oh, it's the same f***ers from earlier. Yeah, they slowed the hell down to watch us film when they were driving past. Looks like they came past again. Jesus.
The threat of security had worried us, but we decided to go back one more time to see if we could catch a glimpse of the city. As we turned around, the rain started to fall. And just like that, we were being followed.
Oh, I see a car with a black car with its lights off.
Yes, and then we will make ourselves scarce.
Gotcha.
Our plan was to cross into the nearby Birch Bay State Park, in hopes that security would not follow us onto public land.
He's gonna turn around. He's not gonna follow us into the park. We can drive through the park too without a permit, so.
Let's do that and then turn around.
Yeah. He's using that grocery store parking lot to turn. I think we believably left, but yeah. I can guarantee you they're gonna be watching that tighter today now.
Okay, well, we'll come back at some point.
Yeah.
This was the image that first captured me. The city burning on the horizon, glowing orange and lighting up the sky. Tonight, Cherry Point is fully visible. Now was the time for a return journey. Our visit in the dark was very different from the day. Everything looked strange. Even a gap in the trees appeared to be a pillar of smoke off in the distance. A red-lighted tower eyed us menacingly, and strange lights blinked through the trees. We suddenly stumbled upon a town, these people living in the shadow of the city of fire. A glow on the horizon looked like another flat urban metropolis.
Dead end, no turnaround beyond this point?
There's a car in front of us. We are not going down this
road.
road.
No turnaround beyond this point.
Do you want me to go down this road?
No, I do not want you to go down this road.
Eyes on car.
Yeah, I got it.
Not moving? We're good for now?
You know the
Hope they're still facing the other direction. Just hope they're not taking the review mirror.
We are just a bunch of idiots. You took a wrong turn. You don't know us. You don't know us. You don't know us.
It seems that tonight we had evaded security until two lights approached from the opposite direction. But they turned out to be something else entirely.
It is a dead end?
Yeah, but
it doesn't quite connect. Oh, I got you. Right? Does it dead end? I'm looking for on the right here. There should be something on the right.
Yeah.
And through the darkened trees, like 1,000 twinkling stars,
it on the limit and we're going.
But as we headed out, a car began to tail us once again. Oh, there's those trucks on the freeway.
They're not even security.
Oh, thank God.
In the heart of downtown Bellingham, there is a sculpture depicting contact with Europeans and Native Americans. Or at least that's what we think it's about. The Lummi Nation is situated directly across the bay from Western Washinton University. They are the original people of the land Cherry Point is built upon. In the 2010s, a new port was proposed to bring in coal from Alaska. It was to be built at Cherry Point. The Lummi Nation was strongly opposed to this. In a letter to Colonel John Buck of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Chair Timbaloo II references fishing rights the Lummi Nation had secured as part of a 19th century treaty. What about the promises? Well, money might have something to do with it.
Did you tell me about your dog?
What's that?
Did you tell me about your dog?
My dog?
Yes.
Yeah. I was on the county council for 12 years, and I used to take my dog walking out at Cherry Point all the time. And we were out walking one time, and it was when the coal port was being proposed. It was before they had any permits, and we started noticing all these roads that have been plowed out through the wetlands out at Cherry Point. And the dog, of course, wanted to explore all these, dragged me down through the mud and up and down these roads. And as we were looking at it, it was like, they shouldn't be pushing roads through out here at Cherry Point. And so we mapped all the roads, we took pictures, we kind of documented it, and I was chair of the county council at the time, so I sent it off to the county executive, the county planning, the Department of Ecology, and very publicly said, what's going on out here? And it caused a big to-do because it turns out they had no permits to be putting roads through the wetlands. And that event really caused a number of the elders at Lummi to kind of wake up and take notice, because there's a sacred village site at Cherry Point that the Lummis hold very dear. And one of the roads had kind of cut through some of that. So the Lummis really started to sit up and take notice at that point after my dog and I documented the coal port trying to run roughshod over the environmental regulations out there.
As we go through
what we're trying to do, we have to remember what we're doing to Mother Earth. You look around us now, the salmon are disappearing. The clams are disappearing. The food of our world is disappearing here. Due to what? Pollution. We have to honor the water. We have to honor the land. We have to honor the air that we breathe.
We're basically saying that the land is not for sale. Tiam skeleton, tiam tiam. I should tiam on Hutching and be a diet, tiam the statue, tiam. Raise my hand to each and every one of you here today to remember this day in a good way, what our people had on their minds from our ancestors, the nostalgia.
Like our ancestors took care of us, we must take care of our future generations. I grew up down here at Sandy Point, watching the growth and development. There were hardly any homes down there when I was growing up. My father fished on this water. Sockeye raised me to fish too. We survived the Bolt decision. But that's our fish, our water. We have lost a lot. There are so many things that run through our mind when we talk about protecting. Preserve, promote, and protect every day to take care of our own. For self-determination, self-governance, and sovereignty. Our eyes are wide open. We are here. We are never going anywhere. This is our homeland.
Cherry Point is not the only mystery on the horizon. Above the city, far in the distance, are visible hundreds of lights holding shape in the darkness. Are they fueled by Cherry Point? Maybe one day we will know.
Exact time, I think it was around 11:30. It was a very windy day, and we're walking back at night past the VU, the cafeteria, and there's just this illumination of the sky, not concentrated on only this singular cloud. It looks like as if someone had a field of spotlights just shown up right at the clouds. And the strangest thing is it's flickering. It's going in and out. And so next to the VU, there's a balcony that overlooks the water. And so despite how windy it is, it's frigid. We walk out there and we look out, and I filmed on my phone because it was so bizarre. I thought, I don't know, the way it behaved was like when you hold a lighter to your hand and it kind of just flickers and lights up the palm. But to see it from that far away, I don't know, it was strange.
And it's going pretty good. It's really like thick. Yeah, I sent one to you an email. Okay. You betcha. Bye.
I can't remember if it was 5 years after the tragedy. Lummi has a pretty amazing bunch of totem carvers out at Lummi, and they wanted to do a memorial pole. They don't call it a totem pole, they call it a memorial pole. Both of the loss of the environment that Whatcom Creek represents, but also of the 3 boys that were lost. So they did this totem pole, and the box on top contains items from the 3 boys who died as part of the Olympic tragedy.
The fire burns and illuminates a monolith. Here on the beach at Cherry Point, we sat and rested on our way back to the university campus. We thought about the journey we had taken, into the City of Fire and back out again. Whatcom Creek was eventually restored. Salmon run through during spring. The swimming hole is still popular for kids in summer. The Lummi Nation successfully repealed the proposed Coalport addition to Cherry Point. With time and care, even the metal of the city itself will collapse, wash into the sea. Salmon will return to these waters too. But the fire, will the fire remain?